course of that 47 months. They don't necessarily come in as defined as such. We provide those skills and capabilities.
Thank you. I yield back.
Representative Gaetz.
Let's put the slideshow back up that we were discussing earlier. This was at the Air Force Academy instructing students on how to use inclusive language. We had Secretary Kendall here, and when we got into the whole mom and dad thing, Secretary Kendall said, yeah, we probably aren't going to tell students they can't say mom and dad. That was inartful. So if there are other things here that are inartful that you want to disclaim, that's a totally reasonable thing for a person to do. So I want to start with this contention that to be inclusive, cadets would have to not use the term colorblind or say we're all just people. Is there something wrong with aspiring to be colorblind in the United States military and particularly the Air Force Academy?
Sir, I think it depends on how a person uses that term in context. I think that most people, if you're of a different race or a different color, that you want to be seen for who you are. You don't want someone to look at you and not see, in my case, a black man, because that's who I am. I don't want you to be blind to that, but I want a person to accept that and to understand that and to include me as if they would include any other person that might be of a different color.
Well, we as a country were in many ways educated on the concept of colorblindness through the civil rights movement. And in Dr. King's many remarks, he would talk about the virtue of judging one another not by the color of our skin, not you as a black man, me as a white man, but by the content of our character. Do you worry that the Air Force's critique of colorblindness could be viewed as a critique of the very values that undergird the civil rights movement?
I don't think so. In my interpretation of Dr. King's words, he's not saying don't recognize the color of a person. He's saying once you recognize it, don't judge them by that color.
Didn't Dr. King explicitly call for colorblindness?
I think he called for what he said. Don't judge people
right,
by the, and that's what I meant.
I want to use, because we're talking about specific terms and language.
Right.
So Dr. King did explicitly call for colorblindness, right?
He may have. I'm not sure of when he did that.
I'm just starting to think maybe instead of like teaching that we shouldn't say boyfriend or girlfriend or mom or dad or whatever, maybe we should actually get back to the core of the values of the civil rights movement, because if we learned about, you would be able to answer these questions more thoroughly if maybe we had a greater connection to the thoughts of Dr. King and maybe a little less Ibram X. Kendi. What about the statement, we're all just people? What's offensive about that?
It's not that it's offensive, sir.
Well, it's not inclusive, because this is saying not, underlined, not, we're all just people. So why is that a not? I thought we're all just people. That sounds inclusive to me.
In the context that this slide was presented, what the folks who presented it were saying was recognize people for who they are, that we don't always all look alike, that we're not always of the same gender.
But why do the words "we're all just people" serve as an affront to that concept?
Well, I think the idea is that we should all be treated as equals. We should.
Well, what about we're all just people? But I got to get you back to the words on your slide here.
Yes, sir.
So the words on your slide say we're all just people, and you say that's a bad thing because we have to say that we're all equal. Does that seem so circular to you?
Well, I think in the context that it was presented, the slide is a bit out of context when you can't present it in the way that it was presented to the cadets.
I mean, I've gone through two of them. I'm providing as much context as I can. Are cadets are punished if they talk about color blindness in a positive way?
Absolutely not.
Are they punished if they say boyfriend or girlfriend rather than partner?
Absolutely not.
Are they punished if they say the disabled as opposed to people with disabilities?
They are not.
Are they punished if they say transgenders instead of transgender people or service members?
They are not.
Are they punished if they say mom or dad instead of parents, caregivers, or guardians?
They are not.
Okay then, so why are we teaching it?
What we're teaching is to understand a person's context, to understand how to talk to people within their context so as not to offend until you get to know your people, and that's how we build effective teams.
What I think you have to realize is that when you critique colorblindness and when you critique statements like we're all just people, that is the divisive activity, that in the name of diversity and equity and inclusion, we see some of the most divisive rhetoric. I see my time's expired. I yield back.